That's funny. No, he has a special little thing.
That's a name for it.
Yeah.
It's blurry. Can you pull it back a little bit? It's a little bit blurry.
Oh, a butt.
It's a butt.
Is that from Hawaii?
It is. Do you want to tell her what it is, or do you just want to let it be mysterious?
What do you think it is?
It looks like feet and somebody's butt, and like they're bending over.
Oh,
like
they're
that.
doing like
they're
child pose?
diving.
Yeah, but
They're
what
diving?
is it?
Oh, what's it made of?
What it's for?
What it's for?
It's
a door
it's
stop.
It's
a door stop.
Elliot. It's to help you put on shoes.
I thought it was a shoehorn too, or a shoe ass.
Shoehorn, that's it.
But it's a doorstop.
It's a doorstop.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cute.
I couldn't think of the word for shoehorn. Jesus.
Well, it's not a shoehorn, but that's all good. It's a weird butt that Benjamin keeps behind him. Keeps his butt around. Anyway, good morning and welcome to Solid Ground live stream Monday, January 29th. And we have Benjamin Boyce with us again. Thank you for joining us, Benjamin.
Yeah, but what's a front butt called then? Like,
what
should
does
I
that
have
mean?
where would I put a butt if not behind me? Like, do you think I want a front butt?
What does that even mean? What's a front butt?
I don't know. Like, where else would a butt go?
You have a weird thing about where a butt ends.
You can start a sentence with butt.
Okay. Well, and
this is a very highbrow discussion.
I know. I feel so professional right now. It's like we had the war on tits yesterday, and today we have butts.
The placement of the butts.
It's just TNA with you, Benjamin.
I'm a man. I'm a man.
I'm a man. Yes, I am.
So we had this. The ladies here and I were having this chat in our chat thread that we keep going about the stream, and this topic, I was really interested in talking to you guys about this specific thing about how some of the gender confusion, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, going on in our young people, especially young women, might be related to a backlash to beauty culture and to the pressures of, I don't know, cosmetic alteration and emphasis on that one aspect of a woman for so long. And I brought this up to you yesterday, Benjamin. We had a bit of a chat. We had a chance to kind of like knock around some ideas. And I am really interested in hearing what you ladies think about that and exploring this concept further. Does anybody want to first tell us, hey, Benjamin, what is solid ground? What do you think solid ground is?
Oh, do you guys want me to do it? Why don't you send me the
you do it.
Just send me the
cuff. Can you think of what it is?
Solid ground is not legally responsible for anything that is said to you in the court of law. It doesn't constitute therapy advice.
Yeah.
But it's a collection of people that are getting together to discuss issues in a very vulnerable type of way. And you guys have a website, and there's calls, and you guys talk with people.
Yeah, that's right. Good job. It's a peer support community online.
Peer support community. Yeah.
We have three peer support groups that meet every week, and we are here for discussion around all kinds of things. But the purpose of the group, the organization, is to bring people together who are experiencing oppressive ideologies, authoritarian ideologies, and talk if it's COVID mandates, if it's DEI, critical social justice.
An opinionated wife. You can.
An opinionated wife. I guess that
counts as a oppressive ideology.
Maybe. I guess it could. Do you need a support group for that?
I don't know. I'm saying maybe someone out there has an opinionated wife and needs some relief from that.
It's quite possible. And so we're at solidgroundsupport.com. Please feel free to join us. $5 a month. Okay, so Deborah, Jennifer, do you have any thoughts about this topic?
Beauty culture.
Oh, and first I should say Adam Campbell Art says at least it's not a kindergarten educational toy. He's talking about your butt.
The doorstop.
Yeah, that was pretty cute.
Butt stop. The butt stops here.
Yeah.
So what is beauty culture and what is your relationship to it, ladies?
I have to say, I think sometimes I'm not as glad I'm old as I am, but in this case I am, because I feel so far removed from any of this stuff because I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on all of these things. I'm not using filters. I'm not seeing whatever these things are. So like, I frankly don't even know if I look ridiculous or awful or like in any of these things. I don't wear clothes other people like. I never was into that. So I don't relate to it so well. And I never really did what other teen girls did either. So I'm like odd in that regard, but I'm imagining if what you're constantly looking at taking in as input is suggesting something that would be hard to just not succumb to it, so I guess I'm just feeling, I guess I said I'm feeling grateful that I just don't have anything to do with it personally.
That you're not caught up in it.
No, I mean, I can have things about maybe aging, but I just don't even know. Like, probably if I do go look at all those things, maybe I would get upset. I don't know. I just can't even be thinking. I can't even be thinking men are caring about that. I can't even be. I just don't. So I feel like I may have less to say about how people are morphing themselves according to all of this, because it's just, I see it happening. I'm concerned about it, but it feels so far removed because I've just never been fashionable.
Well, it seems like there's some subset of women and girls who are really susceptible to social pressure around attractiveness. And there's another subset of women and girls who are less fixated on that and have found other things about themselves to be more important, and have found that that's not the most important part of their life, and they don't fixate on it too much. But there can be a lot of hyperfixation, and we see it broadly in the culture. I mean, I would describe, just in my lifetime, what the awareness of things would have started in the 80s, like the late 80s, and then the 90s. So you saw just so much cosmetics, so much cosmetic surgery, the reality TV craze, the Kardashians kind of bringing this into the kind of normalizing this idea of body alterations, body modification for an extreme body modification, like the hip, the BBL kind of look, and the boobs, and then there was the mommy makeover thing, where there's a trend in plastic surgery for women to, after having babies, to get a tummy tuck and a boob job. And if you are a woman of a certain age, like I'd say 40s, 50s, you probably know a lot of other women who've had some procedures. Whether you have or not, you probably have friends who have had some kind of procedures, all the way from, major plastic surgery to Botox or fillers or something like that, or even just having your eyelashes done. There's a huge industry that is thriving based on women's insecurity, vanity, and desire for more beauty. And so this has been going on a long time, and it's a superficial. What did you say, Benjamin? You said it really well yesterday. It was like there's all these different phases of a woman's life, and you can look at them in archetypes. The young girl.
Oh yeah, that was off screen.
Maiden, mother,
Maiden,
crone.
Maiden, mother, crone.
Yeah.
And so there's this fixation, and you used other words. You were going with like you said, Venus, this Venus
Echo,
archetype.
Venus, and then the crone. Yeah, Hecate.
Yeah. And you said it's like this fixation on Venus. It's like we got stuck on Venus. Like that's the most important part of a woman.
That, and if you don't accept that your life has these different aspects to it, and that the daughter is just as important as the mother, is just as important as the grandmother, and they have different functions, they serve different functions, but you're not going to be fertile forever, and your beauty, like we were talking about yesterday, if beauty is serving, what does beauty serve? It serves, to some degree, fertility, to some degree, social hierarchy. But if that is all you are, if that is the most important thing, then you're going to feel really uncomfortable with your life. You're not going to live a well-rounded life. Or those other parts of you going to work out in the darkness, the weaver of the threads, the three fates, like there's other things going on with you women.
You women.
So it seems like there's youth, even this youth isn't I mean, male and female. I mean, women, I think probably are more concerned about it, but we do live in a culture that just venerates being youthful. And that's like on top, maybe that's layered on top of all of this or something. We don't value old age that much. Sort of like get those people out of the way. So I think that compounds it.
Oh, I was listening to this conversation after Benjamin and I talked. I listened to a podcast that Megan Murphy did with a woman named Cynthia Overgard, and she's a birth professional. She's like she does both birth education and postpartum work and things, and she's really educated on this topic. And she was talking about how so many of the medical and I don't know, it's not necessarily a medical process. So you've also got midwifery. So there's this whole birthing, what do you call it? The birthing economy, I guess. How so many people are going into these gender neutral ways of talking to women that they're serving. So there's a lot of pressure for people to adopt words like birthing person over mother, and chest feeding over breastfeeding or baby feeding. Baby feeding is another big one. I worked for a clinic that had a lactation clinic, and
Did they have a boob van?
No, they didn't have a boob van. I know you want a boob van, but no, they didn't have one. They but they were changing their name to baby feeding because they were looking for something that wasn't offensive to anybody. So they were trying to, but there's this pressure to neutralize. And I wondered, after listening to this conversation and after the conversation that we were having, if what we're experiencing with the word woman isn't sort of a euphemistic treadmill, a perjuration sort of effect, like we have had with, and I know you're going to laugh, but like we've had with other words like moron, idiot, these kind of clinical terms that were at one point were considered to be perfectly acceptable, and then gained a connotation that was pejorative and fell out of favor and became insulting. And so now we have this industry that's moving away from the word woman, and this youth culture that's moving away from the word woman, at least some set of the youth culture that don't want to identify as that. And so I'm wondering, what has that become associated with? What is it that we are seeing people move away from? And part of it seems to me to be this emphasis on this superficiality and the sexual objectification of the young woman, of the Venus archetype, if you will. And so I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I feel like I personally would be very upset if I went to a gynecologist and she referred to my vagina as my front hole. And if she was using language that is indicative of being a follower of the current ideology, if I'm outside the age range of being pregnant, but if I was pregnant, I would want to heavily experience myself as a mother to be. I would have a lot of emphasis on that, and I would draw a lot of meaning from that. And it would also, I think, help me through the difficulty of pregnancy, because pregnancy is all about preparing to be a mother, and to take the word mother out of it and just be called a birthing person. Why even acknowledge personhood? Why don't you just say you're a birthing unit? I just find it so extraordinarily dehumanizing. And I think this is done in capitulation to a small but very loud and unreasonable portion of the population who's demanding these things. I find it ridiculous, honestly.
It's not. This is the weird thing. It's not just appeasing that like small group. It's also appeasing the people who want to be on the right side of history. So like the people who are promoting this, the people who are in these fields that are doing this, predominantly women, think it's the right thing to do. So it's not just the TRAs or like the crazy people. It's like the people who are facilitating that.
Like kind of people that are sort of more or less normies, but they're veering towards this because they see this as sort of the right thing to do. This is the compassionate thing to do. And I think that is just very misguided, honestly.
You know, thinking back to the girls, it again, I would want to actually like talk to them and ask them, but it does seem like an opt out of that competition. It also seems like the video that you had us look at of the girl who was being boyish and telling everybody else how to do it. I think there's this perception, I mean, we kind of hear this, that so many of these young girls think it's better to be a boy, like you're just, life's going to be easier, it's not so sexist. And so I could see her, she was trying to do all this confident, like these bravado-y, confident sort of poses. And I do wonder that if part of it isn't this notion that men are all confident, boys are all confident. The only way I can kind of have my confidence is, well, one, I won't perform femininity for the men the way they want it. So I'm not going to get my confidence by getting this feedback from the men. And then it seems like the boys are up to something that it just seems really confident. So that way I can get it. So I see that as those as some potential contributions to all of this.
Yeah, I feel like I had the experience of going into a gynecologist. I've talked with you guys about this. I was following up from an emergency surgery and I had to see a gynecologist, and she was an older woman working with a younger, I don't know if they're residents or the doctor in training. So there were two women who were there, both Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so, and they couldn't use the word woman with me. They just wouldn't. It was person with uterus, person with a vagina, person who menstruates, people who this, people who that. And I made sure to use the word woman in reference to myself. So I made it very clear that this was something that I was comfortable identifying as. It wasn't an effort to use neutral language in order to like sort of walk on eggshells around what I might be identifying as. It was an attempt to, I felt like I was like, they were enforcing a code for each other and also educating me in the process. It felt very like this isn't a learning, they're using this clinical opportunity to inculcate me with this way of talking. And it was really pretty gross. I really came away with a bad taste in my mouth. And I wrote a thing about it on Substack a while back. But I think that we can either be outraged by this or we can try to understand it. And I'm trying to understand something here. And I can be outraged about it too. But I'm trying to shift gears a little bit and look at where's this coming from? And I can tell you that for myself, I felt a lot of discomfort with the word woman. I didn't want to be a woman. I did not. I mean, I went through my own gender dysphoria as a kid where I really wanted to be a boy. And that lasted, I don't know, into adolescence. And then I was fine. But then I was fine being a girl. And I was probably close to 30 before I could use the word woman. I remember having a conversation with my mother about it, like, ugh, gross, don't say that word. It was so gross to me, the idea of woman. And I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to look back at myself and think, why was that? And there was also this real discomfort with like, I was not some proud pregnant person either, a pregnant woman either. I wasn't like, I had some hangups around this stuff. And I also had some being caught up in the attractiveness thing and the like never feeling good enough and always feeling like this pressure to. So I'm wondering what is that? And I wonder if there's a way to sort of look at this, if other people are experiencing this phenomenon, if this is some kind of a cultural shift or trend, and what is it a response to? And I'm kind of curious to see if this holds water for other people.
You know what? Oh, sorry, go, Benjamin.
No, that's fine.
I mean, one thing that comes to mind is, and it's sad because I see this in younger people, and I had a client who actually was working in this domain called femtech, which there's this sort of view of like the actual bodily aspect of being a woman is massively inconvenient, and being angry about it. And so I think one piece of it is whatever ways there are the inconveniences, but like somehow culturally it's even being reinforced that having different bodies is just in your way. And then there's this, as opposed to this embrace of it, as opposed to saying like, wow, being a woman is wonderful and look at all the amazing things your body can do. There's this bit of like, oh God, I gotta like work around this whole thing. And so I don't know if that's a factor. Like we're not really taught to sort of revere it. There's a little bit more of horror. Like I can imagine there probably has been one. There's probably been some horror movie that was really just about some woman going through puberty or something like that. And it doesn't seem like we get, I don't know if the men get it either, but it doesn't seem like we get to be feeling good about stepping into all of this, and the changes, the challenges, and then the opportunities. It seems like it's getting more of a disgust vibe almost, or something.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of polarization around what it is to be a woman, right? Like there's you're either sex fodder, you're pornified, objectified, whatever, or there's the more feminist take, which is like you have to be everything. You have to be what a man is. I don't know if girls are losing the plot somewhere in between those two things. Like, can't I be something else?
And is it always a reaction?
Is everything always a reaction?
I don't know. Like it seems like there's a dearth of self-determination, you know?
Well, but when development, I mean, if you're talking about the way a thing develops,
Yeah.
how does one put self-determination into that process?
Well, like when I was young and very narcissistic, I was like obsessed with my looks. I remember like when I was 19, like I would always look at my reflection like constantly. Like whenever I was walking around, I was looking at myself. Um, so I mean, and that's probably developmentally appropriate when you're very narcissistic, and a lot of my brain has started to come online in wonderful ways. But I constellated my importance or my value in the world into like, well, what am I? Like, I want to be a writer. I want to be an artist, like something like I want to manifest something. I want to be good at something. But this whole identity trap is like, you're going to become a man? Like, okay, yeah, I am a man. Like, I want to be a good man. Like, that's something to become. Like, you want to become a man if you're a girl? Like, it seems very, like, what are you going to do once you get there? Like, are people going to admire you for being a man? I mean, like in my head, like I would be admired if I wrote like an excellent book and people would want to interview me because I was so important and clever and funny and judicious and wise. But like if you're just a man, like if you're non-binary, like that article shows up, like, okay, you're non-binary. Good for you. Good. Okay. You get to flash me your boob. But it's not a boob anymore. Good for you.
This is
And
the
but
article you're talking about.
on the screen now,
Can you
which
see
is
it now?
fine. I mean, that's
Mhm.
Teen Vogue. Like, do you expect Teen Vogue to be anything but shallow?
I mean, but my first thought when I looked at this is horrific.
I think it's horrific also, and they're glamorizing this for teenage girls. That Teen Vogue has a huge influence
Yeah, and there's no
on
point
teenagers.
in this nipple thing that they're doing except to promote.
Is it a
That's
That's
snipple?
right.
Because it got
It's a weird thing. It's like a Frankenstein kind of thing.
It was so funny too, because she talked about like if people wouldn't accept her non-binary identity, she's being erased. And I'm thinking you're erasing yourself. I mean, you're erasing yourself.
Well, also, bring up the topic of self-determination. Sorry, you can probably hear the train outside my window. Sorry about that. This girl, look how cute she is. She's so cute. She's still a girl, and she's not, this doesn't look like a boy in any way. The thing that she's doing is putting on a posture that says, screw
That's
you.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of masculinized posture. But I think that being a woman is so extraordinarily complex, both physically and emotionally, that I'm not entirely surprised that this gender ideology has caught on with young girls, because I remember entering puberty and it being really threatening to my sense of self, which had been really strong until that time. And I could see why someone might want to bypass the whole damn thing. And I think that what we need to do is offer more support to girls. But I think that what they're offered is support in becoming more like guys. It's like I feel like with feminists, it's like the way to prove your value is to be more like a guy. Like they're always like, girls, you can be this, you can, and then they mention all these things that men do, as if that's how you can gain your value, is to be more like a guy. Well, why is that? That to me is kind of anti-female. And so you have that coming from the feminist, and then you have this gender ideology that's now in schools and everywhere in our culture. And God, that feeling of being when a girl's body starts developing, it feels extremely private, and you feel very self-conscious, and you're trying to adjust to it. And at the same time, it's happening so publicly because of our secondary sex characteristics. You're constantly being judged. People are looking at you to see how big your boobs are. And back when I was in school, there were no rules about bullying or what you could and couldn't say to people. And so guys would scream and yell at us in the halls and yell out comments about our breasts. People would do that to me in class. And I mean, when I retaliated by calling somebody who called me like a flat-chested something or another, and I said that he was a needle dick, I am the one who got in trouble in class. So, I mean, just what girls go through is, I think, pretty staggering. And then you start having your period, and a lot of people have severe mood disturbance with their period, and they're not getting enough support around that. I think it's just incredibly difficult, and we don't have enough support for young girls to see what's good about being female. But I think what's difficult for all of us is to be female is on multiple levels to be vulnerable. You are vulnerable physically. You're just vulnerable in ways that men are not. You're vulnerable because of the fact that you can get pregnant. You can have an unplanned pregnancy with an uncommitted, irresponsible partner, and that will change and reshape your entire life. We are incredibly vulnerable. So that's frightening, especially if you have certain things you want, dreams and aspirations, and you want to have some level of independence and self-determination. It's frightening. And I don't think we've really figured out how to navigate it in a way that's fair to both men and women.
That's beautifully said. Ray in the chat says boys can be a bit self-conscious around puberty too. Puberty was a shitstorm back in the 70s. And it's true. I mean, I think that it's one of those things, whenever you start talking about this, it sounds like you're putting you're sort of throwing away the concerns of one side in order to emphasize the other. But it's really that they're both and.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the young men. Imagine some developing a lot faster, and you've got like some guy that's like big and muscly, and someone else who just has not started to shoot up yet, who is just like feels weak and small, and these big guys are going to beat me up and they're going to make fun of me and do all of that.
Yeah,
So
that's scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had a really hard time when I went in back when in my day, it wasn't middle school, it was junior high. And I had a terrible time transitioning into junior high from elementary school, because in elementary school, I was really physically matched with the boys. And I was a bit of a tomboy, and I would scrap with boys at recess, and I had no problem punching somebody if they were getting too obnoxious with me. And then in junior high, all of a sudden guys were making horrible comments to me about my body, because I was rail thin and had, the tiny boobs. I was just like a little teeny thing. And they would say something, and I suddenly realized I can't fight this person. I can't punch them. I can't kick them. They could beat the crap out of me. And I felt so helpless. I felt like there's nothing I can do. I just have to take it. They can yell these comments out in the hallways. Everybody will turn and look at me. I can't do a damned thing. And it was that for me was quite a negative introduction into becoming a woman.
Reminds me of the arc for that movie Carrie, or book, Stephen King book. Did you ever like go full psycho, Jen?
Too bad I can't do that thing. Like, remember her eyes like snapped and then everything. Yeah. Too bad. That'd be friggin' awesome.
Well, and something that's happened, I would say, in our recent cultural memory is the way that consumer advertising has commodified femininity and capitalized very heavily on female vulnerabilities and on aspects of femininity that are attractive to men. I mean, for naturally attractive, but it's sort of like this, like the candification of it, right? So you've got like the apple versus the apple flavored Jolly Rancher. You take something and then you concentrate it in order to transactionalize it. And that's really been done so heavily, like sex sells. How many times have you heard that? Sex sells. Well, what is sex? Woman. What is sex? Body, boobs, beautiful woman's body. You don't mean sex, you mean woman sells. You mean the idea of potential for sex with woman sells. And so women have been, there's this, what has that done to the connotative meaning of womanhood? What has that done in our cultural recent memory? I've talked with a young woman not that long ago who thinks that the gender ideology is silly and crazy and doesn't buy into it, but wears a binder and cries about being a woman, doesn't want to be a woman because it's degrading and debasing. And this isn't the only person I've heard express this, so there's something going on in what it means to be a woman. And I think also there's a whole nother conversation that could go around what it means to be a man. We could this isn't like, oh, woe is me, females have the worst end of the stick, because they're just different. It's just a different conversation both ways. But what have we done to ourselves? And somebody said something about luxury beliefs or luxury whatever, and this goes to the conversation Benjamin and I had last night also. We were talking about is this like first world problems? Well, you can judge that, or you can try to understand that too. You can either be mocking it, ridiculing and judging it, or you can be trying to understand it. And if you try to think about culture as a person, and you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, maybe after you've met a certain degree of your needs, you start working on other stages of development. And maybe first world problems is just the next level of development of the organism. I don't know. So what are y'all's thoughts?
I'm thinking about, and I was thinking about this when you had your discussion yesterday, and Mary Harrington talks about this all the time, but what things, I don't think we can control this, but what things should or shouldn't be working in a marketplace, right? Like once we get beauty and looks and sex and all that, and dating and all of that is put in a marketplace, commodities, sort of pricing value, it seems to just degrade whatever it is. I mean, I don't know how you could, have a commons or boundary, any of these matters, but it seems like it makes everything into smaller components. The body parts are separate from the person. Let's trade this image. I don't know. And so I don't know how we can really stop that. That would be one of my anti-capitalist probably angles, would be when there's domains of life that should be maybe more in the private realm, or I don't know, like something that just you've talked about sanctity or sacredness. What happens when these things are moved out into the marketplace? But again, I don't know how to solve it and stop it, or how you do it, but it seems to be somewhat inevitable. We might get, and consumption, even the notion of consumption, of wanting, of buying what I want, to being a consumer. I mean, all of that mindset seems to contribute to this as well.
Benjamin, you look like you're positively brimming with thoughts.
Oh, well, I just have one question for you. If front hole is the gender neutral term for vagina, is side hole the gender neutral term for mistress?
Oh God. I need a giant gong.
I need answers. I don't
And then the
want
hook
to
comes.
be impolite when I'm introducing her about town.
Do you have a mistress?
You need a glossary. You need a glossary about holes.
This is my prime hole, Leslie, and my side hole.
Side hole.
Oh,
Well, if you're in a
geez.
polycule, what do you do if you're in a
Bertha.
polycule? If you're in a polycule, you would have like what, primary, secondary, tertiary? I don't know.
Have
Oh
you
my
guys
gosh.
seen Eliza sent me on a rabbit hole chase through plurals on Reddit? And it's this community of people on Reddit who are convinced and convincing each other that they have multiple personalities. And
Mhm.
it's just like the trans phenomena. I was reading this, I wanted to bring it up today, and I think this might be related just from the social contagion issue. I don't know. But um, this one person smoked pot and then started hearing voices and then comes over to plurals. So like, okay, well, I'm trans femme, so I'm on hormones, but I might be plural. I had this experience that hasn't happened again, so I'm starting to like leave notes around the house for myself to see if I answer myself, my other people in my head. And and then this other person's like, yeah, that happened to me too. You know, I'm a trans presenting polycule or whatever, like plural. Uh, and the notes are a good idea. You leave notes around, and if you see answers to yourself, like then you know you're definitely plural. But don't force yourself down this road. You know, just relax. If it happens, it happens. If not, it's not. And you know the whole egg phenomena, right? Where everybody's like convinced, like there's this community online. It's like, oh, they don't know they're trans. We have to crack open the egg. You know, it's like the same thing with this thing. And you know, if it gets a little bit more popular, Leslie, and all you counselors out there are going to have to start
Oh
sticking with these people.
no,
And
no,
one
no.
post was like, my therapist doesn't believe that I'm a plural. They think it's a delusion. Like I need another therapist, but I'm scared of my dad because it's not safe for me to come out as plural at home. And
My
they're using the same whole
God.
thing.
You have to affirm it at school. The teacher's going to
Come
affirm the
out
plural at
language.
school.
Yeah, at
That's
school you'll
right.
have to
That's right.
affirm the plural. What's the plural flag gonna be?
Jay Bourne says, how do these people function through the day? And I think the point is that they don't. These are people who
I
are
think that is the point.
these are people who are online way too much, and they are bored, and they don't feel like they have any purpose,
Well,
and they're
what's
not
the difference
connected.
between that and non-binary? Like, and just to push back a little bit on the affluenza thing, I mean, like, to what degree does it really matter if somebody is non-binary? It's like, are you going to do the laundry? Are you going to
Mm.
serve the world and
Oh,
stuff?
Right,
yeah. And
right,
I
right.
would just
Stop
come
being
back
so
to
obsessed with yourself, you know?
yeah. I mean, it is. I think there's
Selves.
Selves, sorry,
Jennifer,
self.
please
Used to be an
I
respect.
didn't
S.
mean to not be inclusive. I have to be inclusive of all the selves.
well, doesn't this relate to the concept of prophilicity?
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
do
Have
you
you
want
guys
to
spoken about
talk
that?
about
What's
that? No,
prophilicity?
Moiler?
Benjamin will talk about this.
Moiler? Prophilicity. It's been a while since I spoke about that, but there's this pretty good YouTube guy. He's a philosopher. He's actually a German philosopher in China, and he's kind of a commie. He's kind of a commie, not gonna lie. But he has this theory about like different stages of identity throughout time and how traditional modes of identity where your identity was built out of your function, like you're a father or you're a minor, you know, and then modernity comes along with media, and then you have this quest for authenticity, right? It's like who am I really? You're not just what you are. You're looking for your true identity, and that's the Gen X thing, you know. We're on our identity, we're authenticity quest. And now because of media, because of social internet, your sorry,
You're
your
muted.
identity, yeah, I'm sorry. Your identity is built out of your profile. So it's this, and Moiler thinks that all these different stages, one's no better or worse than other. There's just trade-offs, and it's just how people function in the world. So a trans identity or a plural identity or your bio, like if you go into leftist circles specifically, your bio will include like how many medications you're on and like which leg of yours like has a disability to it, you know, like you stack up your profile. And that's the salient metric by which one's self is packaged and transmuted in different, you know, environments. And so prophilicity, and this is something me and Leslie have kind of argued about or wrestled about because Leslie has an issue with social media. She doesn't want to like deal with the profile. She thinks it's fake. I'm sorry to talk about you to your
Okay.
face like this, but and I'm like, okay, well, yeah,
She,
it's
her
totally fake.
pronouns.
Yeah.
It's totally fake. And yet it's true, it's real, because there is social valence there. So you have to understand that this is just a package that you're putting yourself into. Your profile online, it's a branding thing. It's not totally fake, but it's not totally real either,
It's
any more than
cultivated.
you're being a mom. Like
Yeah.
I remember, like kind of like a female, not necessarily feminist talking point, is that you have all these hats that you put on throughout the day. Like, I'm going to be this person, and this person, and you're kind of aware that you're switching codes all the time. And being a mom is a real thing, but it's a mode of being too. It's a part
Mm-hmm.
of like your identity to a certain extent, because it fulfills the role in being a mother, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
all these different things that you swap out and that you are to people. And that's the weird thing when we get to our stalker episode, Leslie. Like, the whole parasocial aspect reaffirms that.
Yeah.
People have an idea of me in their head. They have expectations of me in their head. And that's really funny when I get in trouble with the feminists. Is that they have this thing, like, we're so disappointed in you. It's like, wait, I don't owe you anything, but they built up this idea of me in their heads, which is real to them, and it's salient to them. It's just like, I stepped out of that and then I stepped back into it. And so that's why I kind of like perform micro iconoclasm against my online profile by just stepping out of character, or having a lot of different characters, or playing around with sentences on Twitter, which is like, I'm not going to say my thoughts. I'm just going to say a thought, right? Like, I'm kind of like dancing with the profile to make it a little bit more alive, more interactive, have more texture to it.
Yeah.
Which, if I was slick with the branding, I'd be a lot bigger as a personality or an influencer. But because I kind of like degrade my profile a little bit, it makes it hard for people to peg me into one category or another. And you get a lot further in this world if you stick to a script.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's interesting. So the profilicity thing, it's
And so femininity, what you're talking about with beauty and stuff, I think it's not a mature way of understanding. It's like, okay, my beauty is over here. It's like, no, my beauty's on top of me. It's like putting your shoe on your head. Like, your beauty is wearing you more than you're
right.
wearing your beauty, right?
Well, it's a superficial aspect of self in some ways. There's a lot more to a life than how we present and how we communicate. But when we've over exercised that aspect of ourselves through so much emphasis, like through these kind of calls, like I'm on a call with 3 people, and when I look at it, I see myself reflected back too. And that's different than the way we interact in the real world. That's a different thing. You wouldn't be able to focus on the self the way that we do. We wouldn't have to have a little think about what picture you put up. I mean, I was just looking at my YouTube comments. Somebody was criticizing, it was Christine Siefan. They were like, her profile picture doesn't even look like her. It's like she's got an outdated headshot, and so they're like, and so there's criticisms of this. Like, you have to think about these things, and that's an unnatural thing. It's introduced a new element. So it's introduced the
Mm-hmm.
element of superficial focus on appearance to a degree that is new in the way people interact. So the profilicity thing, it throws new information at us for us to contend with.
Like surfaces, right? And then I think of postmodernism, like just all of this deconstruction, breaking down. It's just like lots of surfaces, like there's no essence anywhere. I don't know, like the whole social media just allows for more and more of this, the way we interact with it, and can, we can present things, we can present little icons, but you're never going to get the whole looking at someone's essence, looking at their profile or whatever their presence on social media.
Paul McAuliffe in the chat says, is it possible that we collectively put way too much emphasis on sex, gender, sexuality, etc.? In my opinion, that stuff should be part of us, not define us. I think that's a really good point. And I also think that it seems like it's indicative of an immature developmental stage. And so if you go back to thinking about the culture as a developing organism, when something has the opportunity to say, what am I? What's the first thing that a baby one of the first categories babies recognize is sex. I don't know. So this is just a kind of a thought that I've been having about cultural development, evolution.
probably has its right place, but it's gotten obsessive. So obviously sex, people mating, continuation of the species, right? But like everything's just like people are being obsessed about all of it in a unsubstantial way.
Yeah, and people have been breeding fine for centuries without all that level of, weird obsession. I was thinking about what you were saying earlier, Leslie, about, like in advertisements and media, seeing women in these very sort of sexualized ways, and, how they're portrayed in this, very kind of almost like sexy kind of, a lot of ads. I mean, it looks like the woman's like ready to have sex. And I'm thinking about it, and we grew up with it so much that we barely even question it. It's just part of like the air we breathe. But I'm thinking, what does that really do to a young girl who's developing her identity as a woman? It's like, to be a woman is to be super, super sexualized in a way that you don't see men being sexualized. I mean, what if there were all these pictures of guys in little tiny booty shorts bending over
there are some.
Well, send them over.
There's the guy that was the actor in The Bear. I forget what his name is, and he just won, I think, maybe just won an Emmy. Like, he's got this underwear ad. Like, I just saw him out on the street the other day, and he's just, like totally out there with his, I don't know if it's Calvin Klein's or whatever. So they do occasionally thrust men into these embarrassing underwear ads.
Okay. I haven't seen that one, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't see that as much with guys, like little boys when they're like 12 years old aren't thinking, oh, that's how I'm supposed to act. I'm supposed to, and I just wonder like what exactly that does to the psyche, and how women can, like, how can we have a relationship to our own femininity and to beauty that is healthy for us and that feels joyful and not kind of objectifying and demeaning.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking like you use the example of the little boy who is not focusing on, well, that's what I'm supposed to act like. And I think about all the different ways that for better or for worse, those are some sounds.
Sorry.
Wow. So I'm thinking, well, maybe men are seeing other things. Maybe, well, like they have the I don't even know, and I don't even want to go speculate on that. But maybe they have other aspects of masculinity that are being represented besides that one superficial thing. Maybe other things are also being superficially represented, but it isn't that one. And then I thought, well, what else? What would be a positive view of womanhood? What do we not see represented? We don't see the older woman. Yeah, 97 Cents says Benjamin is hungry. Like that was your stomach growling. That was Jennifer's dog. But so we don't see as you said, the crone, right? The matriarch, the older woman represented very much. There's not a lot of that. How is that going to be used for advertising or something cool? And we don't see, as I was also thinking, motherhood. The mother, and is that because we have a culture that's obsessed with population control? I mean, even my mom would say that in the 70s, when she was having babies, there was this real push to not be a breeder and to think about how many children you're having, limit family size. And people there, there's this like sort of trend in the younger people to look down on people who wanted to have families. And has that not continued? Do we not have sort of an anti-human, anti-birth element in the culture that goes along with the climate alarmists and the other sorts of messages we hear about conservation and environmentalism? So with the anti-human element, the anti-birth element, does that not also punish us for moving from the developmental stage of the attractive ingenue into the mother who is now nurturing young? Is that so? Maybe it's not all just this like focus on sex culture, but it's actually there's also a sort of a stop put in. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Depends on where you're looking at ads. Like I don't even have a TV, but when I've been somewhere where it's during the day, if it's during the day and it's like there would be, I don't know, cereal, things that moms would buy. So there is advertising that would show moms, but it's not going to be like the fashion advertising.
Well, it's not just ads, right? It's not just ad driven, right?
Marketing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Well,
Now they
is there a
have,
market for moms anymore? I mean, a lot of disposable income is for those wine cat moms, right? The wine moms with the cats, the wine cat ladies. You know,
like the
you know what I'm talking
like
about?
the tote bags at Fred Meyer that say wine is basically fruit salad or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and
There's
Benjamin,
and
you
they've
keep
gone the
waiting.
oh, and they've gone the other way with doing the body positivity thing. So that there's been this, well, we can show bigger people. It's interesting what they are including that wouldn't have been like the norm of beauty or something like that. But then the category, like you said, like older people or whatever the categories that they're not touching.
yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna send you something, Leslie, to put on the screen if you want to.
Oh, sure, sure. Randall
Uh,
Sawyer in the chat. Hi, Randall. He says, Leslie, please mention my preference for use of phrase complementary sex over opposite sex, which I mentioned Thursday. That was
Hmm.
yeah, I liked that idea. Randall's in
I
solid
like
ground.
that.
We had a conversation about
Complimentary.
that. Yeah. All right. I'm looking at
That's
what you sent,
nice.
Benjamin. You guys go ahead and chat amongst yourselves while I try to figure out what Benjamin's sending me.
I'm
yeah, can
watching my
you?
puppy take a crap on the floor and thinking this is
Oh,
why
wow.
Benjamin Boyce does not want a
I
dog.
don't want a dog.
Thank
I don't
goodness
want
this
dogs.
isn't a scratch and sniff
I am
conversation.
going to pack mine up and ship him to y'all.
Oh no, I don't want a dog.
But he loves you.
All a trick.
All right. I'm going to share this thing that Benjamin sent. Here we go. What is this? Can you guys see this now?
Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah.
Tell me about this, Benjamin.
Well, I mean, is that not like the image of a certain type of consumer, right? Like it's literally the consumer, and it's like it's a COVID picture. It's this woman drinking a cocktail, cat's taking a shit, messy room with the gloves on the floor and the mask and the all this disposable Amazon boxes and stuff like that. So, like, to what degree is mother when you target mothers, are you targeting you're targeting like women are what 70 to 80% of the economy, like the buying power of
Buying
females is like 60 to 70%, right?
or
So
do shopping. Yeah.
if you're trying to capture that, you can capture them being a mom, but there's also this kind of like this daydream of this woman who's like, despite being a mom, she's still like at heart like this single woman on the city, kind of thing, maybe. I
Mm.
mean, what I think a lot of what you guys are talking about is it's like it's appealing to women. It's there because it works, and
Hmm.
it's working on women because it works on women. So there's some sort of cycle or psychology of women around beauty, around self-care, and
Hmm.
standing in your vibrance, like
Oh,
there's just
you love
like
to make fun of that.
well, no, there's like, like you guys love to be foofy and woo. You like that, you like your little Oprah and Winfrey up to a certain point, It's like, you have your little cherished things. Like, if I manifest my intentionality, like it's this like this soft kind of, it's a female thing to like want to manifest things. So I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is just like where it kind of goes off the rails. You're like, wait, that we're astray, girls. Listen, girls, we're getting a little over there. Like young girls, like, it's okay. Don't cut your tits off. Yeah, I know it sucks for men to make fun of you. It sucks. But, and it sucks when they don't pay attention to you too. And it sucks that you care what they think about you. Like why not just not care about that?
Hormones.
Hormones.
Yeah,
We're all
well,
led around by our hormones.
it's easy to judge on the individual level, but I guess I'm more interested in understanding the phenomenon and where it's come from, where it's going, what these kind of conversations about it represent in terms of it, like cultural level introspection. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that is uniquely female typical.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious I don't know a lot of the trad influencers. I'm curious. I know some of them are more like get married, have babies, but I'm wondering if any of them have spoken about the beauty stuff as well. I don't know if Benjamin, do you know, or if any of them have spoken about this whole cultural beauty thing?
That's interesting. I mean, there is that like there's critiques of the trad influencers because they are like the epitome of, they're manipulating. They're over determining, like, watch me be a trad woman in front of a camera baking a pie with like my tatas like jiggling around. It's like, wait, no, you're actually a porn star in a blue flannel dress thing. It's like
Um,
yeah, watch me like please my husband before he comes home. It's like, oh yeah, you're pleasing more than just your husband here. This is not trad. So I mean, there's that like obvious manipulation of that.
Yeah, and how does influence work? I just, you know, is everybody trying to change the world through influence? Is that just the thing that how, I mean, from advertising to influencers to people who discuss social trends and try to warn others, it's communication.
Yeah, it's actually like it used to be an astrology term, influence, like the flowing in of ethereal fluid
Oh, wow.
that's affecting human destiny. So influence is like it has something to do with like the same word for like what do we call celebrities. It's like this celebrity comes from like it's another
or
term for
a luminary.
yeah, it's like the
Hmm.
stars,
Oh, that's cool.
We call them that, like the influencers, the stars. They're like radiating. They're built out of light and sound, just like we are. So yes, we are all just like pouring out our charisma. I'm sure charisma is also another
You gonna look up the etymology of that one?
charming word.
Like Greek or something.
Yeah, favor or
Celestial word.
grace, which is
Huh.
more ecclesiastical or Latin. It has more to do with church stuff. But it is a magical kind of thing to influence, to seek to
Yeah.
influence.
Well, and it's like the idea of a social contagion is a pejorative phrase for something that is also attempted constantly by people for what they believe are benevolent reasons, right? Like
Yeah.
we're trying to make something catch on. We're trying to make awareness of this thing catch on. I mean, that's like the whole conversation around the harms of DEI or the way that we think about critical social justice. It's basically a bunch of people trying to have conversations in order to bring awareness to other people, in order to make them say, I think maybe this thing over here isn't such a good idea. So if you're not trying to create some kind of contagion, well, what are you doing? So there's just different frames for it, for the same thing.
I'm wondering with the
That's
contagion.
your stomach again, Benjamin?
I do wonder though with the contagion, if when that's used, it appears that people's rational capacities are not so operant. Like it just, it's not like people just sat and considered something, reasoned through it, and then they all adopted it. I think with the contagion thing, it seems like it comes in a way that the ordinary process you might go to evaluate something might just be missing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Well, this ended up kind of scattered at the end. I think this conversation is there's so many moving parts. It's hard to know what the main thread is to pick up. Any final thoughts? Maybe Jennifer? About your dog.
I'm thinking, oh my God. My dogs are killing me right now. That's my thought.
No.
Yeah.
Terrible.
They're killing me. Doggy momhood is killing me. It's very joyful, but it is killing me.
Yeah. How about you, Deborah? Do you have anything that you wish we'd focus more on or would want to talk about more about this, around this in the future?
Well, it's also, I think, with the boys too, and I think I mentioned that to you, another thing, but the idea of having elders and sort of guides for younger people traversing, whether it's rites of passage or like something traversing through these stages, and it just doesn't seem like we have that, whether the young people just think the olds don't know anything or no one's taking that on, or I'd like to see more of that. I don't know what the best form of that would be, but I'd like to see more guidance through these for both sexes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Benjamin?
Yeah, the ephemeral is It's catchy, it's shallow, but it also has a place in life. The way one looks, the presentation, the loving your own voice. Like why would you talk at all if you didn't love your own voice a little bit? But you know, like to speak for the sake of hearing yourself speak is one thing, but like to, you know, enjoy yourself, you know, enjoy your wife. It's great to have pretty things. It's good. I don't know, like you know, like the ancient wisdoms of like the monotheists. It's like, yeah, enjoy the wife of your youth. Like enjoy the fruits of life, you know.
That's what I think that when I was talking earlier about what would the healthy relationship with beauty be, and I think it's joy. I
Yeah.
think it's enjoyment.
Yes. Be an enjoyment enjoyer.
Thank you guys so much for this conversation. And thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat. We will be back next Monday, and maybe we'll see some of you at Solid Ground.